The Senate will come to order. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Colleagues and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Majors, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Balmer, Baumgartner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia, Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert, John, Johnston, Jones, Cafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez-Humenic, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Scheffel, Scott,
Excuse.
Sonnenberg, Stedman, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods. Mr. President.
Here, with 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the reading of the Journal of April 16th be dispensed with and the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is approved and the Journal is adopted. Committee reports.
April 16, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 265 be amended as follows, and also amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 16, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1243 be before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 16, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1252 be referred favorably to Committee on Appropriations. April 16, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 252 be postponed indefinitely. April 16, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 185 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 16, 2015, Mr. President, Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration outside a hearing on the following appointment and recommends the appointment be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Member of the University of Colorado Hospital Authority Board of Directors from the 1st Congressional District, Ronald W. Williams, for a term effective April 1st, 2015, continuing until March 31st, 2019, or until his successor is appointed by the Board of Regents. This will be Mr. Williams' first term on the Hospital Authority Board of Directors. April 16, 2015, Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had in consideration has had a hearing on the following appointment and recommends the appointment be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Member of the University of Colorado Hospital Authority Board of Directors from the 4th Congressional District, Richard Monfort, for a term effective March 1st, 2015, and continuing until February 28th, 2019, or until his successor is appointed by the Board of Regents. Mr. Monfort currently is a member of the Hospital Authority Board of Directors, having been appointed by the Board of Regents in an at-large capacity for a term which began on July 1st, 2013. April 16, 2015, Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration has had hearing on the following appointments, recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Colorado Traumatic Brain Injury Trust Fund Board for a term expiring June 30th, 2015, Wendy Dietz Thurman of Denver, Colorado, on occasion by the resignation of James Pinckney III of Henderson, Colorado, appointed. For term expiring June 30th, 2017, Dilawar Jal Mistry, MD, MS, ATC of Grand Junction, Colorado, appointed. Indira Beatriz Gujral, MS, PhD of Denver, Colorado, appointed. April 16, 2015, Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration as that hearing on the following appointment and recommends the appointment be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Member of the Colorado Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing for a term expiring July 1st, 2018, Lucas Michael McCart of Denver, Colorado, service member who is hard of hearing, appointed. April 16, 2015, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1232 be referred favorably to Committee on Appropriations. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1026 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1217 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1104 be postponed indefinitely. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 124 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1015 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 258 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 231 be postponed indefinitely. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 196 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1166 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 176 be postponed indefinitely. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 22 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 206 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 1225 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 214 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 222 be referred to the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 230 be postponed indefinitely. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 233 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 141 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1136 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1186 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1131 be referred to Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1134 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 257 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 267 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation. April 17, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1045 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole. Favorable recommendation.
Senate Services.
April 17, 2015, correctly printed, Senate Joint Memorial 1, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 225, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bills 11, 133, 181, 195, 227, 228, and 229. Correctly revised, House Bills 1130 and 1215, House Joint Resolution 1019, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1153 and 1255.
Mr. Majority Leader.
What is it, a tribute? A tribute. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that this time that the Senate proceed out of order for purposes of some introductions, moments of personal privilege, and first a tribute.
The motion before us is that the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege, and since it is Senator Johnson, this requires a unanimous vote. And I believe a roll call has been requested. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The Senate will proceed out of order for Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. we thought we would bring a couple of more wild animals to the Senate chamber than the ones that already preside here. And so I would like to request a moment of personal privilege. Did I do that already?
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. And so today we want to bring a small tribute to the Denver Zoo, which many of you have probably been to, probably visited with your children or your grandchildren or your friends. It is actually the single most visited cultural institution in the state of Colorado. We had a number of wild animals. Unfortunately, Mr. President didn't see fit to bring the Bengal tiger down onto the floor today, but we do have an amazing hawk. And so, Frank, can he bring that over here? There you go. Mr. President, tell me that. There you go. It could fly at you at any moment, Mr. President. You can stand right there. Fantastic. What's the name of the bird again? An auger buzzard. This is called an auger buzzard. Yes. And it is one of the many, many species of wildlife that are at the Denver Zoo. Again, an amazing cultural institution. More than 1,000 schools come through the zoo every year. 69% of the folks who come to the zoo receive some sort of free or discounted admission, and again, remains our highest visited cultural institution in the state. We do have some guests that will be here in a minute, but I would ask Mr. President to read the tribute to the zoo while you all get to check out our fabulous buzzard.
Senator Johnson, please read the tribute.
Thank you. Whereas the Denver Zoo was founded in 1896 as part of the City of Denver Parks and Rec Department, and whereas Denver's zoo mission is to secure a better world for animals through human understanding, and whereas it is home to over 4,300 animals representing more than 600 species, whereas the Denver Zoo is the most visited cultural organization in Colorado and the region, welcoming more than 2 million guests each year, and whereas the Denver Zoo is committed to accessibility to all, providing more than 1 million free admissions to Colorado residents since 2012, and whereas the Denver Zoo brings science education alive, providing unique learning experiences, and the Denver Zoo reaches over 1,000 schools. There are only 1,700 schools in the state, so 1,000 of them come to the zoo each year. And the Denver Zoo strives to make these transformative programs accessible to all. And whereas the Denver Zoo is dedicated to saving the lives of animals in the wild, participating in over 600 conservation projects across all 7 continents, and has received numerous awards, including being honored by the United Nations for Denver Zoo's field work. And whereas Denver Zoo is the greenest zoo in the country, as recognized by the AZA for its innovative sustainability program, whereas more than a century after its inception, the Denver Zoo remains an international leader in animal care, education, conservation, and sustainability, and therefore be it resolved by the Colorado State Legislature on behalf of the citizens of Colorado, hereby express its appreciation and recognition of Denver Zoo and its impact on Colorado, the region, and the world. And I think if they are not here yet, please get a chance to meet the new CEO of the Denver Zoo is here, a woman named Shannon Block, as well as the board chair, Mr. Lon Clinton, and our trustee, Mr. Royal Palmer, who I think will be coming over from the House in just a minute. And feel free to get your picture with the birds.
And let's reserve our applause until the bird has departed the chamber.
Lest we scare him.
Move very slowly.
Under your leadership, Mr. President, the Senate has gone to the birds.
I see you finally have your 18th vote.
We do what we can.
Stay calm, people. The buzzard is still here, and his guest. Senator Lemberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, in addition to the Zoo Day, this is, of course, a homeschool day at the Capitol, and I have an apology to offer to some members who asked, will there be cookies on our desk today? And I apologize, there is not. Instead, we have white chocolate espresso macadamia nut bark. Now, if you can put up with that as a substitution, then please do accept my apologies as well. Of course, it's just a small token that is put on our desks on behalf of Christian Home Educators of Colorado, who are sponsoring Homeschool Day at the Capitol today. And we have with us in the chamber the president of Christian Home Educators of Colorado, Mr. Bill Roach, over here, and his son Chad, who used to be one of my interns many, many years ago. Now he's gone on to bigger and better things entirely, and the speaker that they have for today at the rally on the West Steps, which, yes, is planned for the West Steps, weather somewhat permitting, and that's the Reverend Dr. Paul Michael Raymond. I certainly welcome them to the chamber and invite all of you to join us either on the West Steps, or if the snow gets too deep, I suspect we may be down at the Pillar of Fire Church about a half block south on Sherman. But please join us if you can. It starts at 12:15. Thank you very much, Mr. President and members.
Thank you, Senator Lemberg. It is a zoo day here, so we hope it's only the snow that gets too deep. Senator Crowder.
A moment of personal privilege, Mr. President.
Granted.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have some guests here from Lamar today. There's some youth with 4-H, and I thought I would acknowledge them here. What we have is Angelina Downing, Miranda Morgan, Waitland Woolert, Paige Smart, and their adult chaperones, Lacey Mann and Marilyn Owens. As you're aware, the 4-H is a very important issue to the state of Colorado, and I would like you to join me in welcoming them to the Capitol. And I thank you very much, Mr. President.
Let's keep it a little soft, though, because we've still got the buzzard here. The golf clap, golf clap.
We are accustomed to birds.
Golf clap. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since we have gone out of order to this degree, I'm going to ask that we continue under the previous motion, continue with a moment of personal privilege for the good senator from Arvada, if she will hear her recognition and come do her moment. Because this way we have brought the various moments together on this glorious Friday.
Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, colleagues, I know the bird has been fabulous, but I want you to turn your attention, if you would, to a little toddler in the back here. It's my 2-year-old son, grandson Jackson, and my husband, Bill. So if you join me in welcoming them.
Golf clap.
And then also, Mr. President, I would like to introduce the Colorado Women's Alliance and the Young Professional Women. This is Young Professional Women's Day at the Capitol, and these gals along this wall that are standing now are part of that group, and we'd like to welcome them to the chamber as well.
Golf clap, golf clap, golf clap. Third reading of bills. Mr. Majors, please read the title to House Bill 1215.
House Bill 1215 by Representative Priola and Senator Johnston concerning in-state tuition classification for dependents of active duty military members who have attended school in Colorado.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1215 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Senator Neville, Senator Woods, Senator Johnston, Senator Holbert, Senator Marble, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner. Additional no votes. With 27 ayes, 7 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1215 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Lambert, Senator Aguilar, Senator Guzman, Senator Kafalis, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr, Senator Carroll, Senator Heath, Senator Hodge, Senator John, Senator Todd, Senator Newell, Senator Merrifield, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Roberts, Senator Cook, Senator Johnston, Senator Jones, Senator Hill. That is the trifecta. Mr. Majority Leader, please add the President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Having voted on the prevailing side, one of the few, House Bill 1215 would ask for reconsideration, move for reconsideration.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That motion fails. Mr. Majors, please read the title to Senate Bill 225.
Senate Bill 225 by Senators Holbert and Neville and Representatives Ryden and Sane concerning the governance structure of the State Historical Society in connection with changing the method of appointment of the Board of Directors and creating a Directors Council.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 225 on third reading, final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, just like every time we do this, are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 225 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Roberts, Senator Guzman, Senator Lambert, Mr. Majors, please read the title to House Bill 1130.
House Bill 1130 by Representatives Nordberg and Ryden and Senators Garcia and Hill concerning voting by military and overseas voters in municipal elections in connection therewith extending certain deadlines that govern the conduct of municipal elections to ensure that such voters have the same ability to vote in such elections as they do in federal, state, and county elections.
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1130 on third reading, final passage, and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, thanks for the robust discussion on this, and I appreciate my co-sponsor's support and all y'all's support as we work through this.
Senator Hill, thank you for the $5 fine. Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1130 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Merrifield, Senator Ulibarri, Senator Roberts, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Donovan, Senator Jones, Senator Cook, Senator Todd, Senator Kafalis, Senator John, Senator Aguilar, Senator Newell, Senator Hodge, Senator Stedman, Senator Guzman, Senator Grantham, Senator Lambert, General Order, second reading of bill. Senator Shuffle, Mr. Majority Leader. If you
I know.
It's a unanimous vote, and there's, 35 of us.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the interest of bipartisanship and Fridayness, I move that the reconsideration of, move for the reconsideration of, having voted on the prevailing side, and move for the reconsideration of House Bill 1215 be reconsidered. And under the rules, colleagues, this does require a unanimous vote.
You have heard this motion more than once. This requires a unanimous vote, and a roll call has been requested. Thank you, Senator Aguilar, for paying the fine for Senator Hill. Count your votes. Mr. Majors, please poll the senators.
Senators Aguilar, Balmer, no. Baumgardner, aye. Carroll, aye. Cook, aye. Crowder, aye. Donovan, aye. Garcia, aye. Grantham, aye. Guzman, aye. Heath, aye. Hill, aye. Hodge, aye. Holbert, aye. John, aye. Johnston, aye. Jones, aye. Kafalis, aye. Kerr, aye. Lambert, Lundberg, aye. Marble, no. Martinez Humenic, aye. Merrifield, aye. Neville, aye. Newell, aye. Roberts, aye. Scheffel, Scheffel. You have to vote. Aye. Scheffel, aye. Scott, excused. Sonnenberg, aye. Stedman, aye. Todd, aye. Ulibarri, aye. Woods, aye. Aguilar, aye. Lambert, aye. Mr. President,
Aye.
Mr. President, aye.
Mr. Majors, please confirm the ayes and the noes.
Voting aye on the motion are Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia, Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert, Johnston, Jones, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Martinez Humenic, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Scheffel, Sonnenberg, Stedman, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods, and Mr. President. Voting no on the motion are Senators Balmer and Marble. Excused is Senator Scott.
With 32 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to change my no vote to an aye on House Bill 1215.
For reconsideration, Senator Marble will be recorded as an aye vote. So now with 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused. Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to be recorded as aye.
Senator Balmer will be recorded as an aye vote on the motion to reconsider, which is a motion to reconsider. With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, that motion is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1215?
House Bill 1215 by Representative Pirola and Senator Johnston concerning in-state tuition classification for dependents of active duty military members who have attended school in Colorado.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1215 on third reading and final passage. Thank you for this valuable lesson.
Still missing that one magic word. Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it was sort of like the football player running into the end zone who drops the ball at the 1-yard line to start the touchdown dance. I was inadvertently demonstrating my swish motion to Senator Holbert, which was correctly interpreted as raising my hand for a no vote. I will never do that again, Mr. President. Your grace. I ask for an aye.
Your apology is accepted. Correct. Continue.
Still asking for an aye vote.
Are there any no votes? Senator Woods, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Holbert, Senator Johnson, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner. With 28 ayes, 6 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1215 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Johnston, Minority Leader Carroll, Senator Kafalis. No, if you've already raised your hand on the previous 2 or 3 times we've considered this bill, you are still on it. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request that House Bill 1239 be removed from the general order second reading of bills consent calendar and placed at the end of the general order second reading of bills calendar.
House Bill 1239 will be removed from the general order second reading of bills consent calendar and placed at the end of the general order second reading of bills calendar. General order second reading of bills consent calendar. Senator Roberts. Oh, excuse me, Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. Without further reconsideration, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. Senator Woods will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles to all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar?
Senate Bill 220 by Senators Carroll and Cabot and Representatives Duran and Del Grosso concerning security for the Colorado General Assembly. House Bill 1315 by Representative Wright and Senator Crowder concerning support for county veteran service officers. Senate Bill 262 by Senator Neville and Representative Williams concerning updates to the statutes regulating blanket sickness and accident insurance.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee adopt the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 220 and its associated State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report, House Bill 1315, and Senate Bill 262 and its associated Finance Committee report.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the general orders second reading of bills consent calendar. Sorry, thank you. Correction, colleagues, is there any discussion on the committee report on Senate Bill 262, the Finance Committee report? No? Oh, sorry. All right, we're going to get this right. Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the bills on the second reading bills consent calendar? Seeing none. The motion before the body is the adoption of all the reports to all the bills on the second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills listed on the general orders consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is that the committee rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. We rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had 3 bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
April 17, 2015, Mr. President, your committee, the whole basic report is under consideration of the following tax bills being second reading thereof, makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 220 is amended, Senate Bill 262 is amended, passed on second reading in order to gross placed on calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1315 passed on second reading in order to revise placed on calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Senator Johnson is a no. Further no votes. With 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Senate Bill 220 is amended. Senate Bill 262 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered and gross and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1315 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general orders second reading of bills calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills. Senator Woods will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 213?
Senate Bill 213 by Senators Katterman and Scheffel and Representatives Hollinghorst and Duran concerning the limited waiver of governmental immunity for claims involving public schools for injuries resulting from incidents of school violence.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 213 lay over till April 20th.
The motion before the body is that Senate Bill 213 lay over to April 20. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 39?
Senate Bill 39 by Senator Lambert and Representative Humphrey concerning the retention by the state of Colorado of concurrent jurisdiction over certain federal lands in connection therewith the retention by the state of concurrent jurisdiction over land owned and operated within the state by the United States Forest Service and the United States Bureau of Land Management.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee lay over Senate Bill 39 to April 20.
You've heard the motion to lay over Senate Bill 39 to April 20th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1271?
House Bill 1271 by Representatives Lontane and Hamner and Senators Marble and Donovan concerning the funding of mobile learning labs through the Colorado existing industry training program.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move HB 1271, and there is no committee report.
To the bill, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a great bill. It opens up a funding source for community colleges to expand mobile learning labs. This will make sure that hardworking Coloradoans aren't choosing between work and furthering their education. This bill will increase mobile learning labs, therefore helping small businesses stay competitive and give workers the tools they need to achieve their goals. This is an innovative component of the suite of workforce development bills that are being carried in a bipartisan partnership, and I ask for your support.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1271 is a great bill. We ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1271. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1239?
House Bill 1239 by Representatives McCain and Lontine and Senator Stedman concerning an exception to the prohibition against paying post-employment compensation for the Denver Health and Hospital Authority.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1239 on second reading.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1239. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
April 17, 2015, Mr. President, your committee of the whole basic report is that it has had under consideration the following tax bills being second read thereof, makes following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1271, House Bill 1239, passed on second reading in order to revise basic calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 213 and Senate Bill 39 laid over until April 20th, 2015, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. House Bill 1271, House Bill 1239 passed on second reading and ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 213, Senate Bill 39 laid over until April 20th and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Majors, please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1021.
House Joint Resolution 1021 by Representatives Pedersen and Danielson and Senators Donovan and Todd, concerning the designation of April 14, 2015 as Equal Pay Day in Colorado and in connection therewith acknowledging the persisting problem of wage disparity among various groups.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Joint Resolution 1021 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas, 52 years after the passage of the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, women and communities of color continue to suffer the consequences of inequitable pay differentials. And whereas, according to the numbers released in 2014 by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, year-round full-time working women in 2014 earned only 80% of the earnings of year-round full-time working men, only a 1% increase since 2011, indicating little change or progress in pay equity. And whereas in 2013, women who worked in Washington, D.C. had the smallest wage gap, earning 91% of the average amount earned by men who worked in Washington, D.C. And whereas over 135,000 households in Colorado are headed by women, and nationally about 40% of employed mothers are the sole breadwinners for their families. And whereas according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau in 2013, the wage gap was discernible not only by sex but also by race and ethnicity, with Asian women earning 90% as much as white men, followed by white women, black women, and Latinas who earned 78%, 64%, and 54% respectively of the earnings of white men. And whereas earning disparities among women and men of each race were the most pronounced for white and Asian women, who earned 81% and 73% respectively, as much as their white and Asian male counterparts, while black and Latina women had median earnings that were 90% and 88% respectively of those of their black and Latino male counterparts. And whereas black and Latino men also experience disparities when their pay is compared to that of white men, with black men earning 76% and Latino men earning 67% as much as white men. And whereas as women get older, the pay gap widens significantly, according to the American Association of University Women. 1 year after graduating college, women earn only 82% of what their male counterparts earn, and 10 years after graduation, women earn only 75 to 80% of what men earn. And whereas in 2012, 36% of women and 37% of men were parents of children under age 18, and among women, median weekly earnings for mothers of children under age 18 were $680, whereas the earnings for women without children under 18 were $697. But the reverse is true among men, for whom the median weekly earnings for fathers with children under 18 were $946, compared with $799 for men without children under 18. And whereas over a working lifetime, wage disparities cost the average woman and her family an estimated $431,000 in lost wages, also impacting Social Security benefits and pensions. And whereas fair pay equity policies can be implemented simply and without undue cost or hardship in both the public and private sectors. And whereas there exists a strong business and public interest case for pay equity. And whereas fair pay strengthens the security of families today and eases future retirement costs while enhancing the American economy. And whereas Tuesday, April 14th, 2015 symbolizes the time in the new year in which the wages paid to American women catch up to the wages paid to men from the previous year. Now therefore be resolved by the House of Representatives of the 70th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, proclaim Tuesday, April 14th, 2015 to be Equal Pay Day in the state of Colorado, and urge governmental agencies, nonprofit and labor organizations, businesses, and individuals to take steps to implement fair pay equity policies to help close the pay gap for Colorado's women and minorities. Be it further resolved that a copy of this joint resolution be sent to the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C.
Senator Donovan, colleagues, please be seated.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues, for allowing us to have some time on this issue this morning. Equal pay for equal work. This should be a given in 2015, but sadly it is not. The reality is that in Colorado, women make 28% less than men for doing the exact same job, for working the same hours, for having the same title, for having the same responsibilities, for helping Colorado's economy the same, for supporting their family the same, and oftentimes more so, especially in single mom homes, for pursuing their ambitions and dreams to the same level as men. Women are consistently docked because they are women. Across entry-level jobs, mid-skill professions, corporate titles, we see the same pattern of women making less than their male counterparts that have an equivalent position. And to add to the story, Colorado, as we heard, lags behind the rest of the nation in closing the gap. We in Colorado see a larger disparity between wages than the national average. And the story is even worse for women of color. What a sad statement in 2015. This week marks the week that when the wages paid to women finally catch up with that of our male counterparts made. It has taken me 15 and a half months for women wages to match that of the wages of her male equivalent made in the 12 months of 2014. This means women never catch up. This resolution doesn't aim to pit men against women. It intends to bring attention to a lingering issue that hasn't been solved, or worse, one that gets wrongly brushed away as not a real problem or an issue that we can dismiss. I recently read in a glossy brochure against pay equality that women themselves are to blame for this inequality. I quote, "Paper and compliance costs of hiring a woman mean less money for employees and does nothing to empower women to better negotiate hours, benefits, or pay in ways that are mutually beneficial," the brochure reads. When we still so easily blame the victim for the situation they are in, there is no better argument for need for further attention to this topic. Colleagues, it would be easier to ignore this problem than to face it. We took that approach earlier in this session. But in conclusion, around our country and in our state, we are seeing glass ceilings break. But when the shards fall away, there isn't equality in pay, only in title. Our state will be held behind as long as we continue to allow women to make less than their counterparts. In this room, our paychecks are gender neutral. And I ask you, don't the rest of our citizens deserve the same treatment?
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as I was looking at this resolution and started thinking back just historically, I can remember having grown up in Kansas, and my dad was a superintendent of schools, and I remember around salary negotiation times. Most of you probably didn't have these kinds of conversations in your home, but being in school business, we talked about bond issues, mill levies, and salary schedules, and all those kinds of things. And I can remember him talking about a way to rectify a single mom. And they ended up with coming up with head of household pay. And that was a way of trying to raise that equity, because it ended up being mostly men, and in education, we know that there's a larger percentage of women even back in the 50s and 60s. And that was an unusual kind of thing as we talked about that. And I said, well, what is head of household? And it was a matter of, if there is not a male, then they will rectify that and give it to a woman. That was pretty revolutionary, and I look back now at so many of the things that that my dad did with trying to make sure that people were treated equally. I think that's part of where I come from. But the interesting thing is that over 135,000 households in Colorado are headed by women, and nationally about 40% of employed mothers are the sole breadwinners for their families. So when we think about how do we help people get out of poverty, without just doing a handout, but a hand up, it is about making sure that their salary schedule is the same as their counterparts. We've seen that Black and Latino men also experience the same kinds of disparities when their pay is compared to that of white men, with Black men earning 76%, Latino men earning 67%, as many white men. Now, there are exceptions to this all over. There's no question that many businesses are very, very responsible and do treat their employees equally, and there is not that disparity. But it still does exist in our country. It still does exist in our particular state of Colorado. So I think in terms of the fair equity policies that can be implemented without a great deal of hardship on both public and private sectors, bringing the respect of your employees is probably one of the greatest gifts you can give to whoever is working in your company, to make sure that all people are treated and represented equally and fairly. I think this is an important call to attention in terms of looking at what equal pay really means. And again, I'm always a little surprised and a little shocked when I read these statistics that in 2015, we're still having this conversation. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very honored and I love being a woman. I love to engage in victories and I love to be happy about the things that we as women have accomplished. And I love the accomplishments of all people. And I really love to engage in the happiness that occurs from one's hard work and all of the things that go into being successful. And even the hard spots, those parts where we really don't succeed, but you know what, we learn a heck of a lot from it. When we take into account how the numbers are reached for the pay equity, it's independent research consistently discredits the so-called gender pay gap. The Census Bureau is a little bit antiquated in its way of generating their numbers, but even so, it's been narrowing each year since the 1960s. Groups as the American Association of University of Women and the Pew Center have found the gap is steadily growing smaller and in fact now virtually non-existent for the large majority of college-educated women under 40. And this is really an important point to look at. The most comprehensive nonpartisan studies ever undertaken to determine the diverse cause of pay gap was done for the U.S. Department of Labor by CONSAD Research Corporation and published by the U.S. Department of Labor in January of 2009. And they came up with some really good stats regarding this pay equity gap, or so-called statistical analysis that includes variables has produced results that collectively account for between 65.1 and 76.4% of a raw gender gap of 20.4%, and thereby leave an adjusted wage gap that is between 4.8 and 7.1%. A 2012 Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis report summarized the available research and concluded that the pay gap has shrunk to no more than 5% if all the factors influencing earnings were taken into account. For example, when only hourly wages are counted, the pay gap is 13%. But if total compensation, including all benefits, is included, the gap shrinks to only 3.6%. I think that is incredible information to have, and I think that it's really important for us to look at everything that's available and not just a couple of studies or one that kind of bend the focus our way. As a woman, I don't want to be looked at as a victim, and I really have to admit that my own choices have got me where I am today, and I have paid for the wrongs, and I have benefited greatly from the rights. Nothing goes smoothly for everybody. Life isn't easy, but it's sure worth it. I want to celebrate our victory as women and as minorities to where we have been able to achieve higher and higher goals, and we have to take a look at ourselves not as victims, but as victors. And so I would like to really take another look at some of the numbers that are put forth regarding the pay gap, gender pay gap, and really say are we really looking at this through clear eyes, or are we trying to manifest a victimization of a class that's really gaining victory? And yeah, we're all going to see some more hard times. But you know what? I really, really love winning, and I think we are. And that's the way that I would like to look at women and the minorities that we are, and say we are winning and celebrate that.
Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the prior speaker, the good senator from, where are you from, Vicki? Berthoud, no, Fort Collins. for bringing in what I think are the more realistic figures in this pay gap. And I rise to talk a little bit about employers. I think this resolution assumes and even asserts that discrimination by employers is the primary cause of a remaining pay gap, whatever its true size, when in reality, as shown by this Department of Labor study, there are multiple causes for this pay gap, if it does exist in some smaller number, as it exists in a smaller number. And I want to point out that there is an industry right here in Colorado that pays women roughly 50% more than they can make in any other industry, and that's the oil and gas industry. They have really good paying jobs for other women, and we need to, as women, go get those good paying jobs. So that's what I wanted to say. I hate to see a resolution that tries to pin this on discrimination by employers. As an employer, I speak against that, but I just want us to, as the prior speaker said, look at this with a little more clear vision than perhaps we have been.
Is there further discussion? Minority Leader Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, every year I harbor perhaps a secret hope that we all unite behind a principle of equal pay for equal work. Never to me seemed to be a partisan issue, and it's multifactorial, no doubt. And if the gap is this big or this big, we still have a point in common. I agree that I want to support victories and women winning, and acknowledging that it is simply inevitable that women or minorities will always get less pay for the same work is hardly what I would consider a victory. This whole country was founded and has been ever in the process of trying to perfect the idea that we are all created equal, no longer just all men are created, but we are all created equal. The point shouldn't be lost in the weeds over a percentage or, frankly, exact methodologies. That's really not the point. The point is by any calculation, women are still getting paid less money for the same work, and minorities are still getting paid less money for the same work. By any calculation, that's just wrong. It's not impugning a motive to figure out what's there, but today is the day for us to rally together for every person, every worker in Colorado to be paid what they're worth and to not be docked a tax of sorts on their wages for the fact that they are a woman or the fact that they are a minority and performing the same work for the same wage. Is there any reason we cannot come together with a resounding unity on our American principles of supporting equal pay for equal work? We have work to be done here. And I realize that the gap that we see on pay equity is part of why we had created a pay equity commission. I have to say that on the topic of pay equity we're talking about today, it is a profound heartbreak and disappointment to me that we cannot rise above and actually put some elbow grease into this, and let's vanquish this for once and for all. Everyone deserves to be paid and judged on their merits. And as long as we're in a system that by whatever gap continues to pay men and women unequally for the same work, or Caucasian and minority workers differently for the same work, victory isn't accepting that as an acceptable solution. Victory is everyone paid equal pay for equal work, and would respectfully ask for an aye vote on this important resolution that should be uniting us here today to demand justice for all workers to be judged based on their actions and their qualifications and not based on attributes they cannot control, such as their gender or race.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. President. This one hits a little close to home, I would have to admit. My wife had the privilege, and really one of the first things she did on a statewide basis was chairing the Colorado Commission on Women back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I remember very well her coming down here for the sunset hearings on the Colorado Commission on Women. I can't remember the exact year, but it was late 70s, early 80s. And I can remember how disappointed she was when she came home and the Colorado Commission on Women was sunsetted out of existence. And we had a long conversation that night as to what this meant and perhaps reasons as to why it happened. And neither one of us did very, very well with that conversation because it seemed like this was a no-brainer. The Colorado Commission on Women was designed to do exactly what the Pay Equity Commission was designed to do as well, and that is deal with the issues that this resolution brings up rather dramatically, and that is the difference in pay. So that was, let's say it was 1980 for the sake of argument. That's 35 years ago. And the conversation still continues. I have a daughter and 2 sons, and I've had this conversation with all 3 of our kids. I feel strongly that this is something we need to deal with as a society. We've got other inequities we know in our society. We've talked about a lot of them right here during this session. We have a chance, I think, to rectify what I think was a mistake when we sunsetted the Pay Equity Commission, and I still don't understand that vote. But I think we have at least an opportunity here today to say, we understand there is an issue. We know we need to solve it. And let's all stand up and say, we're going to do something about it, which is basically what this resolution says. I would ask for an aye vote.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier, there was a reference to the United States Department of Labor figures. So I quickly went online and pulled up the United States Department of Labor, and I'm quoting from on their first page where it says, "Women make up nearly half of our nation's workforce, yet from factory floors to boardrooms, their talent and hard work are not reflected in their paycheck. Today, women on average are paid only 78 cents for every dollar a man earns. For women of color, that pay gap is even wider. 78% of $30,000 is $23,400. If we followed and adhered to the facts and the data given by the Department of Labor, and that would mean that the women senators in this Senate would be making $23,400. Seeing how passionately and how involved and how hard and how much sweat equity the women have and compared to the men in the Senate, I think they at least deserve equal pay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I rise in support of the resolution and am excited to see the conversation today. I want to acknowledge and uplift and agree with something that was said by a previous colleague, my colleague from Arvada, who said that this issue is complicated and that there are many factors that deal with a pay gap. It can be attitudes towards employees, it can be the climate in the workplace, it can be opportunity and what that looks like in a local community. And the reason I agree that those factors exist and why we need to see this as a bigger issue than the decision of one employer is that we had a pay equity commission, we'll have a pay equity commission until the end of this fiscal year. That was designed to study and investigate all of the complex issues that arise when we look at a pay gap. That commission was charged with giving recommendations to the state of Colorado, to providing best practices to employers to ensure that this complicated issue could be addressed. I spent this last weekend with former Senator Polly Baca, who indicated to me 35 years ago she was the first person to introduce a bill on equal pay for equal work. And in those 35 years, there has been slow progress forward. But in just this year, we've seen backward motion, where the pay gap is growing even wider, where people who are performing the same duties with the same qualifications are being treated differently, not based on the content of their character, their ability, their intelligence, their skill, but solely on their race or on their gender. And that doesn't seem like the direction we want to go. And in fact, Colorado has a very long history of pushing forward for equal rights for everyone. So I come up here to also talk about something I heard when I ran the reauthorization of the Pay Equity Commission, because there was a woman who shared her story about the pay gap. Because oftentimes we hear this is complicated, this is about individual choices. So Lily from Jefferson County talked about her individual choices. She worked for county government, she worked in zoning and development, and she worked really hard. She usually worked 15 to 20 hours more than her colleagues per week. That was her choice. She got 2 degrees and a master's degree. That was her choice. And she spent every single waking hour trying to make sure that she did her job as best as she could. And she was acknowledged by her supervisor for doing just that, working harder, working longer, doing better than everyone else. And then she found out that her 2 colleagues with the same title, who had less experience, less qualifications, fewer degrees, and who were willing to clock out when the clock struck 5, were being paid nearly $20,000 more than she was. Same job, same work. Actually, she was doing a lot more work. She was putting in the time, effort to prove herself. And when she made that known to her supervisor, when she said, "I've done all of these things to prove I'm a good and hardworking employee, I'm willing to make the sacrifice, I am making those choices to do right by this job, I think I deserve equal pay." She received a one-word answer: no. And I don't think that's the state we should live in, where folks who choose to work harder, who do everything right, who follow the rules and play by the rules to get into the middle class should be denied that opportunity solely based on their gender or their race. It's that simple. And that's why with Lily's story, with the story of so many other women and people in this state, that I am very strongly in support of this resolution.
Is there further discussion? Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I rise in support of this today, but I do want to say a few things about it. Every year when we do this, I have a little bit of unease with the language that's used. It doesn't mean I won't support it, and like I say, I do rise in support of Equal Pay Day. But I think what my unease is just an acknowledgement of my own reality, and that is that we're not widgets. We do all come with different backgrounds. We might be wanting equal pay for equal work, and I think that's to be supported, but there are variables among us, and each and every one of us, as one who has employed people, one who has been an employee, I was struck by some language that was in the NFIB letter from 2012 to the Executive Director of Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. And NFIB certainly has a lot of women members in it. And I think the concern that was raised by NFIB back in 2012 about the Colorado Pay Equity Commission was the same, it was kind of the basis for why I struggle sometimes with these resolutions. And that is, we need to look at some factors. We need to look at the fact that a gentleman named Warren Farrell, who was a former board member of NOW, National Organization for Women, published a book in 2005 titled Why Men Earn More. And in that book, he details, there's a list, and this again is in the NFIB letter, says there are factors that are different. Higher pay can require working the worst shifts during the worst hours. Putting yourself at risk performing hazardous work increases pay. Choosing a subfield within a profession, people who work more hours get paid more. People who get paid more have more years of recent uninterrupted service with their current employer. People who are willing to relocate, especially to undesirable places, are paid more. People who are willing to travel are paid more. People who are paid more are willing to accept more responsibilities in new work, although their title may remain the same. And people who are paid more begin with higher career goals. And I again reference my own personal life. When I went to law school, over half of my class was women, and I went to law school quite a while ago, and that was in the mid-'80s. When I see my law school classmates, a lot of my female classmates are no longer practicing law, and I'm always interested in that. And I'll ask them, why aren't you practicing law? Because I thought by now we would, if we have over 50% of our law school class in the courtrooms, we'd have over 50% of women arguing cases. And the fact is they make different choices. They're not always comfortable. What they've said to me is, I'm more comfortable with alternative dispute resolution. I'd like to do mediation. I'd like to do arbitration. The fact is they're not going to make as much money in those roles as they would if they were in court as a trial lawyer every day. But I've had some people say, my parents are aging, I would prefer to be a caregiver, or I'm still raising my children. So I think that's one of the things that is, and I'm channeling a bit my Nancy Spence, former senator here and colleague who I respected greatly. And I think, again, our discomfort is not the idea with equal pay for equal work, but it is that we are all different individuals and we make different choices. I know I personally, when I got out of law school, we had decided to start our family, and I wanted to work part-time and raise my kids till they got to school. That was something that my husband and I agreed to and worked through, but no doubt that impacted my pay. So I think when we talk about this, we just want to make sure that you recognize the variables, each individual, man or woman, the choices we make, and also to acknowledge the progress that we have made. We have great anti-discrimination laws in place, both at the federal and state level. We have a lot of opportunity to right those wrongs, and I'm thankful for that. But again, I rise in support of this and hope everybody can support it with an aye vote. Thank you.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been a great discussion. I just want to add two quick points. We talk in this building sometimes about the phase-in time on any piece of legislation that you run. As a matter of fact, this past week I just sat down to look at a bill that I passed my very first session, very first week of my very first session, now 6 years ago. I went to check in to find out that, shockingly, it's 1 year away still from going live. 6 years later, the bill has not yet been able to have been executed. And we all get frustrated. I'm like, why is it that the pace of government can't move more quickly on things that seem obvious? We all voted on this, it all passed, that was 6 years ago, what's the holdup? Well, if you have reservations about this resolution, let me tell you what the phase-in on this resolution is right now. The phase-in on this resolution in the state of Colorado, according to my favorite liberal news source, the Wall Street Journal, is 44 years. 44 years. 2057. The Wall Street Journal this week published a list of all 50 states and what year they are on track to reach pay equity at their current trajectory. Colorado is 2057. Wyoming is 2159, so they're 130 years behind us, if that makes you feel better. But 2057, my 3-year-old daughter will be looking at retirement when we close the pay equity gap in Colorado at the current trajectory. She will probably be a grandmother. She will have finished 35 years of her career in multiple endeavors, and I agree with Senator from Durango's point that I hope she makes all sorts of choices, including to be in public service or to do things that might make less money than other options. I just want, when she chooses to be in public service or to be part-time or to be a lawyer or to be a surgeon, to be making the same amount that her male partner who is working part-time or being a surgeon or being a lawyer is making. So that's the first one. I would say in any other proposal we would look at, we would say 42 years is a bit too slow of a phase-in on this idea in Colorado. The second one is, I also hope, I think as a parent now, like our parents hope that each generation you put the right incentives in place and your kids do better. And we are making real progress on closing this gap with one major exception. Where it stands right now, the more education my daughter gets, the worse her pay gap will become. Let me say that again. The more education a woman gets in America today, the worse her pay gap will become in Colorado. Without a college degree, you're looking at about $200 a week as your pay gap. If you actually persevere, go through a bachelor's degree, either a post-bachelor's degree, you get a law degree, your gap actually increases. The gap now for college graduates is $400 a week. That's $1,600 a month. That is our salary per year. Right? We are one senator's salary gap between a woman with a college degree and a male with a college degree in terms of their pay equity right now. That seems to me like two trends I would not want to take home to the dinner table tonight and be proud to talk to my daughter about, which is, Emmett and Seamus, you guys fight hard, get as much education as you can, and we'll serve you well. Ava, I would actually recommend you drop out of school earlier because your gap will get worse the farther along you go. Or let's do the things we care about with all deliberate speed, but on this basic question of equity, let's slow it down to 43 years. That seems to me like too long to wait. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first want to thank Senators Donovan and Todd for bringing this important resolution. You know, speaking about equal pay for women does not make us victims. Speaking about or bringing a resolution about equal pay for women does not make women in Colorado who do that victims. It's really about good business practices. This resolution, like all the other resolutions that we bring to this chamber, deserves the same opportunity to be heard and respected because, like all the other resolutions, it is calling attention to a very important concern to thousands of women and thousands of men in the state of Colorado. For goodness sakes, calling us victims because we want to seek equal pay for other women and for ourselves. Victims, the way I see that word, that belongs to those who've been raped, those who've been murdered, those who've been severely injured, innocent people who've been abused. I don't believe that the Colorado Association for Victims Assistance would list women seeking equal pay as victims. I can only wonder if somebody like CPR or NPR carries some of this message today. I can only wonder how women across Colorado will feel when they hear that the fact that they are seeking and working towards equal pay defines them as victims. I support this resolution for many, many reasons, and I want to thank you for bringing it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise in support of equal pay for equal work. I so honor and respect President Pro Tem for mentioning some of the things that I have gone through as an HR professional in looking at candidates and knowing we're not all widgets, and we do have differences, and we have different experiences and different qualities that we bring each to the table that are unique, and that do go into our uniqueness of our pay and what we're offering candidates. But I also believe that this doesn't have to be a partisan issue. It should be a uniting issue. It should be something that says, absolutely. We in this country believe in equal opportunity, and that doesn't mean only for certain things. It means equal pay for equal work. Usually I do talk about, on this day of this resolution, I usually do talk about my HR background and making sure that that we are all, I would teach other HR professionals how to hire within your budget, as well as within your culture, and also within the law. And of course, it is unlawful to discriminate based on any gender or ethnicity, national origin, etc. So why are we still seeing this? Why are the statistics still coming out that there is this gap? And I want to know why Colorado in particular went down last year. The gap widened last year. Now, that's the wrong direction to go. I want to know that. We may never know that because we don't have an equal pay commission after July, so we won't be able to study that or maybe understand that. I would have liked to have known that and explained to my constituents why we're going in the wrong direction. So what really hit me today, though, was beyond my HR world, was as a single mom. And I have been very fortunate. I have been on public assistance when the SNL crisis hit our family, and then I've also made a very good, healthy income before. I've been up and down. But as a single mom, if I were to sit in a cubicle doing my job and looking next door at a man doing the same work, would I even know that they're making more than me? And would I have the courage to ask why if I knew that? Would I be able to go to my supervisor and say, wait a second, I'm doing the same job he's doing, why am I getting paid less? How is that fair in a country and a state of equal opportunity? And if I were a woman of color, that would be even worse. The gap would be even wider. So would I have that courage to ask, or courage to go look, or even knowledge to go look? The gaps also are widened when you do look at the differences in education, the differences in age, and of course that is also unlawful to discriminate on age. And most of us actually in this chamber are over the age of 40, so we are at least in that protected class, except for some of us aren't. But to me, what I heard from one of the former speakers too was that the percentage is only X amount. Well, any percentage to me is unacceptable when you are doing the equal work of any other human being should have the equal pay. And then lastly, I have reservations sometimes about some of my votes and, researching and studying, and some of them are very complicated issues that we deal with down here. This is not one of them. I am proud to vote aye on a resolution for equal pay for equal work for women. I am proud of that. And I, as a single mom of two young adult daughters now, I am proud to say I stood up for you today, and I will continue in my role to look out for the future that you have in your pay in Colorado. Now, ironically, both of them are outside the state right now, but when they come back and they raise their own families here and they have their own jobs here in Colorado, I want to make sure that trend isn't going in the wrong direction, because I want my young adult daughters to have equal pay for equal work. So I am very proud to be an aye vote, but also for all of those constituents walking door to door who would ask me questions about how I believed, how I would vote on women's issues. So for every one of you who I walked to and I met who asked me those questions door to door, I'm voting aye, not only for you, but for my own daughters. Thank you for bringing this resolution forward.
Is there further discussion? Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I come down to the microphone to, I'm sure, give the politically incorrect perspective, because I'm voting no. I'm voting no because I don't think this resolution is very honest. I have, my degree is in social science and history, and I understand the factors that go into any statistic that you might put down on paper. But as I read this resolution, it's not being honest with all of the factors. It's giving this implication that it's either a race or a gender discrimination that yields this discrepancy that we see between various incomes. I don't deny that there are some elements to that, but this resolution is in no way honest with the facts. It doesn't dig deeper into the issue of, I'd like to see these numbers broken down between people who come from whole families and broken families, or people who come from one state or another state, or you could break it into 100 different categories. And to be honest with a discrepancy within pay, you at least need to seriously examine the major factors and not just focus on two, for which I see there's an attempt to make a political statement. And certainly as a social scientific document, this is greatly lacking. I also am troubled by a presumption that equal pay for everyone is appropriate. Philosophically, within the political realm, I believe that was a concept that Karl Marx thought was pretty decent. I don't. I do believe that there's a wide range of opportunities and a wide range of people who either make choices that increase their income or go another direction. Frankly, I chose the other direction. It's called state senator. And as I understand the dynamics of pay for this body, there is no race discrimination, there is no gender discrimination, but there are a lot of other factors, and each one of us in this room who sit in these chairs have made a choice that most probably significantly hurts your income. Your pay is not nearly as high as it could have been. Well, that's a factor, and frankly, that's, I believe, a legitimate factor for each one of us in this body. But it's one of 100 points that could be made that this resolution is lacking in. If it was a serious examination of the issue, it would not take the facts and twist them in such a fashion that there's really nothing left to hang on to of specific, taking the fact of just the basic point of the difference between men and women in pay is at 80%. Now, that I would presume is taking an aggregate of all professions, of all men and of all women, that at least the statistician who gathered this information was able to collect. And it doesn't tell us anything, not anything meaningful. I'm not going to go down that road, and I'm not going to just, in a politically correct notion, say yes. No, when I see a document that I think is worthy of actually putting my name and assent to, I'll vote yes, but I'll not be muscled into something that I don't believe is correct, proper, nor something that we should pass. I'm a no vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we all come to these, our opinions through our personal life, and the women in my life have really formed my opinion around this. My mom stayed home to help my brother and I and my sister later on become good adults, is really what they were up to. They always set a standard so high, my parents, that I always try to reach that, and it's very difficult. But my mom put off going to college until she got her bachelor's degree at 40, and then she got out, and the only job she could find was at the department store. And she was paid less because she didn't have as much experience. Well, you can say, oh yeah, well that's, merit-based. Well, not only that, the other males who came into the location at the same time got paid more. And so she suffered, she went through this, and it really formed her opinion about how we should do things, and that the fundamental unfairness of that. Because she was a good worker. You could count on her. She was conscientious. She'd do great work for people and then still get that reward. And I remember how frustrated she was by that. Later on, my wife and I, it was interesting, we were listening to a presidential debate a few years ago, and one of the candidates said, look, we used to let the women get off at 5 to go take care of the family. And my wife went through the roof. She said, why aren't the men going home at 5? Why aren't the men taking that responsibility on? And she's right. I had the opportunity, actually, as a legislator, having a 120-day session, to be a primary caregiver most of the year to my daughter. And it was one of the more rewarding things in my life. But that also, our expectation that women take time out to rear the kids hurts their income status. And shouldn't we, when people go back in the workforce, pay them on par with men with experience? And what we do is we don't, even with that. But that counts for some of the imbalances because men don't take that responsibility on. They assume that they should be doing the working. And now that my daughter's 26, it's very interesting to me to kind of watch the world through her eyes. I'd hoped it'd be a better place than where my mom was, but it really isn't. It may have improved statistically, but my daughters experience the same stuff. And it's just not right. That's not, as a country, what we do. It's not what we were founded on. And I proudly support this resolution because it's a small effort to move it along, to make this right so that people get equal pay for equal work regardless of their gender and many other traits. Because that's who we are as a country, and we're not getting there, and this is a small measure towards that. So I'd ask you to vote yes. For people who are hardworking Americans that are just trying to do the right thing and live the American dream, and they should get the same fair shake as anybody else. And that includes my mom, my wife, my kid, my sister, and I think all yours too. And I think when you look at it through those eyes, like when I talk to my daughter about her experiences, you think, how wrong is that? We need to fix that. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to get up and respond to a couple things. I think asking for equal pay to equal work is not Marxist. I think it is American. And I'm a little stunned at the comparison. There is a well-known philosopher, Rawls, which, as an ethicist, says that in order to really determine what social justice is in a society, would you be willing to change places? And if you would, then you probably have achieved a place of social justice. So for those of you who don't think this resolution is meaningful, or you think it is simply an empty statement, I invite you to switch places with either the women's pay gap, and most particularly the women and minority pay gap. And if you would be willing to occupy that place for same work at a reduced rate, then let's try it and let's revisit and see if we've actually hit the ethical standard on social justice as Rawls would see it. No one would switch places voluntarily to do that. Nobody. That's just not rational. It's not simply symbolic. I may have mentioned on a prior year, I can't remember or not, when I was 19, I was managing an Amoco gas station. And at the time we had actually, it was a high crime area for what was going on, and I came in with several of my male counterparts managing gas stations around the same time, and once in a while we would do social functions. And it was really sort of a fluke to find out the difference in pay. So I know this will date how long ago that was, but at the time, when I first came in here and when I was doing that job, I was making $990 a month with no insurance and no benefits. And that was working probably 80 hours a week. And I can tell you why that is in a little bit. But my counterparts that came in, and we were good friends, and they were great employees, and I frankly was a hardworking employee. I think I have nothing to disparage against my male counterparts that were there, but they were making $1,200 a month. And we came in at the same time, and we always compared data because that's part of doing good business. So one of the things that the stores would compare at the gas station is the profitability and what we called shrink, or what is shoplifting or losses. So in 9 months, I had turned our store around from one that was losing a lot at the time from shoplifting to one of the most profitable gas stations that we had. So I really don't understand why I was being paid $990 a month, and my also wonderfully qualified male counterparts who came in at the same time, also doing a good job working for theirs, were paid $1,200. I would come to find that this is not unusual, and I'm not even saying it's intentional, but I am saying it's unacceptable. And that's not symbolic. And when your Social Security retirement wages are based on a math formula of your lifetime of earnings, it is an inequity that persists that will never catch up. For those of us who have already lived with a pay gap, will never catch up because our earnings are burned in on the formula of Social Security earnings. And so that means all the way through the rest of our lives, this is an issue. Now, for our daughters and our granddaughters, and I think to the other senator's point here, we don't want to close that gap in 40 years or 60 years. The time to close that gap is today. And I guess to call it symbolic, the reason it's not symbolic to me is not only is the number different, but that is, it's as real as it can get when you're trying to pay rent, when you're trying to pay a utility bill, when you're having to put gas in your car, when you're buying groceries, when you are upside down, when you have credit card debt, when you have an unexpected car repair, which, by the way, in my life, I worked graveyard shifts for no extra pay. So part of why I was working 80 hours a week is if someone didn't show up, I would be there, and I would be there graveyard and know I didn't get paid anymore for working either hazard pay or hard hours for what was there. But what I do know is that when my very ancient car broke down with no headlights at 2 o'clock in the morning, I didn't have the money to repair it. So the difference between $1,000 a month or $990 a month and $1,200 a month, especially if you're living on the margins, is the difference between potentially making it or not. That is not symbolic. That is every day. That is as real as it can get if you have bills to pay, and especially as real as it can get if you have children you are trying to support. So I just wanted to add those points because I think this is a reality that everyone is living every day. I look forward to us working together to make sure that everybody has a living wage and an equal wage for equal work.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none. Are there any no votes? A roll call has been requested. Mr. Majors, will you please poll the senators?
Senators Aguilar, Aguilar, I. Balmer. Balmer, I. Baumgartner. Baumgartner, I. Carroll. Carroll, I. Cook. Cook, no. Crowder. Crowder, I. Donovan. Donovan, I. Garcia. Garcia, I. Grantham. Grantham, no. Guzman. Guzman, I. Heath. Heath, I. Hill. Hill, no. Hodge. Hodge, I. Holbert. Holbert, no. John. John, I. Johnston. Johnston, I. Jones. Jones, I. Cafalis. Cafalis, I. Kerr. Kerr, I. Lambert. Lambert, no. Lundberg. Lundberg, no. Marble. Marble, no. Martinez Humenic. Martinez Humenic, I. Merrifield. Merrifield, I. Neville. Neville, no. Newell. Newell, I. Roberts. Roberts, I. Scheffel. Scheffel, I. Scott excused. Sonnenberg.
Excused.
Stedman. Stedman, I. Todd. Todd, I. Ulibarri. Ulibarri, I. Woods. Woods, no. Mr. President.
Aye.
Mr. President, aye.
With 24 ayes, 9 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Joint Resolution 1021 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Ulibarri, Minority Leader Carroll. Sponsors don't need to raise their hand as co-sponsors. Senator Jones, Senator John, Senator Johnston, Senator Garcia, Senator Heath, Senator Guzman, Senator Merrifield, Senator Cafalis, Senator Stedman, Senator Newell, Senator Kerr, Senator Hodge, Senator Aguilar. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the governor's appointment on the appointments consent calendar?
Executive Director of the Department of Transportation, effective February 9th, 2015, for a term expiring at the pleasure of the Governor. Shailene Pravin Bott of Middleton, Delaware, and occasioned by the resignation of Donald E. Hunt of Denver, Colorado, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate confirm the governor's appointments listed on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, which includes the Executive Director of the Department of Transportation.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion on the appointment on the consent calendar? Seeing none, are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, Shailene Pravin Bott is confirmed as the Executive Director of the Department of Transportation. Consideration of conference committees reports. Mr. Majors, please read the title to Senate Bill 234.
Senate Bill 234 by Senator Lambert and Representative Hamner concerning the provision for payment of the expenses of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015, except as otherwise noted.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the first report of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 15-234.
Are there any no votes? Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes?
Conference Committee.
With 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, the report of the First Conference Committee to Senate Bill 234 is adopted. Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the readoption of Senate Bill 234.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion? Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'll ask for your aye vote. And I want to take a moment to talk about this year's budget process and the work of the Joint Budget Committee, because the day we debated this bill on the Senate floor, it went late into the night, as you'll recall, and nobody really wanted to extol the virtues of this bill at 11 p.m. when we all wanted to go home. And then on third reading the following day, we weren't necessarily extolling virtues at all. I'm very proud of this year's budget. I think we've done some really remarkable work. We have the good fortune of being in a state with a robust economy, with healthy tax revenues to the state. In fact, we're exceeding our Tabor limit in the current fiscal year and the next. We've had money in our budget to be able to invest in important public services, important things that our constituents expect their elected representatives to ensure. This year, we've budgeted enough money to not only pay for growth and inflation for our Public School Finance Act, we're also buying down the negative factor by $25 million. I wish we could do more, but we're using general fund dollars to get there and maintaining the general fund's commitment to public education. I think that's very important. Not only are we working to restore past cuts to K-12, this year our budget again makes significant new investments in higher education to reverse past budget cuts and to do what we are able to do to mitigate tuition increases so that the promise of higher education and the opportunities and the doors that it opens are available to citizens all across our state at an affordable, attainable rate, we hope. We've invested $60 million more into support for governing boards in colleges and universities, and over $15 million into financial aid, $5 million increase for scholarships. We're trying to do what we can to keep higher ed affordable and accessible. This budget, again, continues the work we've been doing over the past several budget cycles to look at our human services budget, to reduce waiting lists for services for people with disabilities, to invest in childcare, and to invest in services for seniors. And most importantly, we are investing in our child welfare system. And some of this is in the companion bills to the budget package that we've already passed. But it's part of the totality of our balanced budget that we're presenting to you this year. And it's one I'm proud of. The conference committee report made a number of important adjustments and frankly brought in some of the amendments that we debated that long night a couple weeks ago but failed to pass. They're part of this conference report, and it's one of the reasons I'm glad to see the unanimous support for the conference committee report, and I hope that will make you look more favorably upon the work of the Joint Budget Committee this year, because we toil long and hard to put this budget together. This is a 5-month process to write this budget bill, and I couldn't have done it without my colleagues on the Budget Committee, our chairman, Senator Lambert, my colleague, Senator Grantham. Thank you for your partnership and your hard work on this budget. We've come a long ways together, and I hope you will join me in expressing your pride in authorship for the budget that we're recommending and passing this year. And most importantly, I also want to thank our Joint Budget Committee staff, because they work even longer hours and read even more mind-bogglingly dry budget documents and cash fund reports and Schedule 9s and all those other things that you don't even want to know about. The Budget Committee staff takes care of a lot of that for us and makes us all look good. I'm proud of their work as well, and I want to thank them. I hope you will join me today in saying that this is a budget that works for our state. It works for everyone, and it's something we can be proud of, to say that the one thing that we must do each year during our legislative session is pass a balanced budget for our state. This is, with your vote here, the final vote on this bill. We can say mission accomplished. Please vote yes.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, want to thank the JBC and their staff for all the work. I mean, all you got to do is sit in a few of those meetings, and you realize how involved and intricate it is and how difficult it is to figure out. You know, we go over and talk about our areas that we have interest in or on conference or on reference committees on, and you know that subject, and then you just think about all the other subjects the JBC members have to know and the staff has to report on and sift through and figure out. So I have a great thanks for the JBC for what they're doing. But I wanted to explain why I'm going to be a no vote today. One is a process question. I was disappointed when amendments were offered, how they were not seemingly open like I remember the prior year when we were talking about $20 million for aerial firefighting. That's a lot of money through time, especially. And having done firework, the aerial part of it's pretty cool to watch, but where you win these battles is on the ground. We weren't paying attention to that, but the fact is we worked through that, put $50 million of changes in on amendments. And that just didn't happen this year, and I'm disappointed that it wasn't more of an open process in that way. Secondly, though, the LARC funding, we have a program that works, that makes people's lives better, and we didn't fund that. And finally, the biggest thing for me, though, is school funding. We cut schools, as you all know, $1 billion during the Great Recession to balance our budget. And we're restoring $25 million this year, and we did, what, 120 last year? And that $1 billion hole, in St. Vrain School District, the high schools have 2 more kids in the class. They have less teacher instruction time because of those cuts. The kids over 3rd grade have 1 more person in their class. They have less instruction time. And I had a conversation yesterday with one of my school district superintendents, and he asked me, what happened? Why do we not put more money in schools? And I said, well, we run a lot of these other bills. We want money for other things. But for me, the fundamental thing we do is make a better world for our state through our children and educating them well. And we have a big gap. We have a big gap funding-wise. We have a big gap with issues and people's learning up to speed that we want them to learn. And so $25 million on $1 billion cut, that's just not it. It's just not there. It's not what my constituents would want, I can guarantee you. So that's why I'm a no today. Again, I appreciate all the work that JBC does. It's a very long and difficult task, and I think given the circumstances, they did very well this year. But I think that priority education for me in the end is the piece that it's not enough. We could do better.
Minority Leader Carroll.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, I'm coming down just to express some gratitude for what was done in the conference committee and to express my ultimate support for passage of the budget. You know, every year there's a lot to commend itself in this year's budget, and I think the senator from Denver had mentioned that well, and I shared some of the same process concerns about feeling both a bit shut out, and I think everybody always has some disappointments with what's in the budget, but we actually, a lot of what was important to us was included in the conference committee report, and I'm grateful for that. It would have been nice, you know, to get it in, but by the time we're in on the conference committee report, there really are some real wins that were added in the budget. And I just want to highlight some of those wins because I think they are significant. We had seen support, of course, for the READY, or the Rural Economic Development. That is a good move. That is in the budget. We saw added funding for respite care, on a study on respite care for families impacted by that. I think that's a very real thing. We saw a measure to help with loan forgiveness for primary care for physicians, and this deals with rural access to health care. And for people paying high cost of student loans, it can really be a disincentive to go out to parts of the state that are needed that may not necessarily be able to afford to pay at quite the same levels. We did see vision eyeglasses investment for kids, and same thing with dental support services, all of which were important to us. Coming out of this chamber, we saw adult ag leadership, again, a bipartisan measure that was done there. You know, my greatest disappointment is really LARC and a failure to fund a proven, data-based, very evidence-based success, one of the most successful in the country, on preventing unwanted pregnancies, and also reducing abortions in the state of Colorado. It is a known, proven program. And we had bipartisan support for the concept just because it worked. It was a win-win for everybody. And the data was really there to show that it not only helped people's lives, but frankly, it saved the taxpayers a lot of money, a smart investment up front that really just worked all the way around. That is no doubt a disappointment. But on the whole, there are many other good things in this budget to commend it, and I think we saw some very important things added that were mentioned that I think warrant support. And while we didn't see increased funding for broadband, and we didn't see LARC funded, and I think many of us would like to see more support for buying down the negative factor or higher investment in K-12. What we are seeing is still an increase in public education. We're seeing an increased investment in higher education, which takes some of the downward pressure off of tuition increases. A lot of work was done this year, and I don't think anyone's ever 100% happy with any budget on any given year, but I do think that the changes that were added in the conference committee are substantive enough and inclusive enough of many of the values we were fighting for, that for those reasons I'll be a yes on the budget today.
Further discussion. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just wanted to get up to explain that I was a no vote as the budget left the Senate, and I will be a yes vote today as it's coming back. I am very grateful for the work that the Joint Budget Committee did in Conference Committee. And to me, that is what bipartisanship is about, is looking together and finding the nexus of what we can agree on. I, too, am disheartened that not all of what we wanted can be in there, but I'm very ecstatic that we got in the eyeglasses for kids who are now not going to have to rummage around. Oh, my God. Eyeglasses for kids. They won't have to scrimmage around in lost and found boxes, for God's sakes, and we will be able to get eyeglasses for kids who are either in foster care or who are in low-income households. And then the other piece, thank you so much in the conference committee for bringing back, is the dental sealants for these kiddos to prevent them from getting the cavities, and that saves us all taxpayer dollars as well. So with that, and also bringing some of the tourism dollars, that is so important when it comes to things like film production in Colorado, and I was thrilled to see that as well. So thank you, Joint Budget Committee. I know you work very, very hard, actually all year long, and I really appreciate now being heard as it came back from Conference Committee. And so I will be an aye vote today.
Further discussion. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo the thanks to the JBC members that I expressed the first go-around. But I also, as a member of Senate Education, want to thank the taxpayers of Colorado. We have more revenue, and from the general fund, we have a 5.5% increase in general fund revenue to the Department of Education. Total funds is an increase of 2.8%. And I think that sometimes it's easy for us to forget that we are assigning dollars that the public has put in our trust to make the right decisions for the people of Colorado. And I, as we work on school finance, wish that there was more. But I think it's always good for us to pause and remember that the companies, the employers, the employees, the men and women of Colorado went out and prospered in the past year, and they have put this money into our coffers, into our hands to trust. And I want to say thank you and ask again for an aye vote.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just add my voice to the chorus in the thanks to the JBC. This is my 7th year here, and I marvel every year at the Joint Budget Committee's ability to pull all of these disparate requests and concerns and issues together and come up with a balanced budget. And I think they did a great job this year. Sitting on the Appropriations Committee, I get a little inside in glance as to how much effort is going into this and the complicating factors that it is. And so let me just say thanks. So why am I going to be a no vote this morning? Well, you can probably say this is a symbolic no vote. I'm sure most of us saw the headlines in the Denver Post this morning where the governor was lamenting the fact as to where we are fiscally in this state. And we can agree to disagree on what he said in there if we want, but the point of the matter is, and I know there's nothing we can do about it, so this is why I say this is a symbolic no, but to be at a time when we are realizing one of the best economies in the whole country, and knowing that this budget, even with what we've done for education, still keeps us in the bottom or close to the bottom of every state in this country as to how we're funding education for kids and how we're funding higher ed is still not acceptable to me. I was concerned with this issue when I ran for governor in 2002, and I'm even more concerned today. Because giving refunds back, which this bill and this budget is doing, and I realize we're required to do it, but giving refunds back at a time where we're not funding our schools adequately, to me, is the height of ridiculousness. And then you can point to transportation. I tried transportation for a year. Pick the number. $2 billion, whatever it is to what we need to reinvest in our infrastructure in the state, roads and bridges. And because of the quagmire we have in our budgetary and our fiscal status, we're not going to be able to do it. And we know we tried with Senate Bill 228. And because of the refunds and because of the intricacies of all of these laws that we've passed, we are putting in jeopardy the funding that can go to transportation. At a time when other states in this country are investing in their infrastructure because they're realizing the same thing we are, a growing and healthy economy. We have got to fix the fiscal policies and the fiscal status of this state. I don't know about you, but I'm going to work on it this summer to try to figure out how we can deal with taking the best of times and being unable to invest in the two most important things that we have, and that's our children, and that's the basic infrastructure of this state which supports our economy. To me, that makes no sense at all. So I'm going to thank everybody. I think we've done a wonderful job with this budget, but symbolically I'm going to vote no because of the fiscal quagmire that this state finds itself in, which I believe has to be changed.
Further discussion? Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, would just reiterate many of the words that my colleague and associate on JBC from Denver made earlier in this discussion, and would also thank him and the senator from Colorado Springs for their work on the budget and just remind the folks in this chamber how lucky we are to have these two guys on the JBC and the knowledge and expertise that they bring into it. I am still on the learning curve when it comes in comparison to these two. We're very fortunate to have these two over there working on this budget. I would thank them both for the hard work that they've done. The minority leader mentioned, and I won't say the exact words, Madam Minority Leader, what you said, but the idea that we can always find something in every budget that we don't like. None of them are perfect. The first 4 years, I voted for one of them. And it was a good collaborative effort in 2012 between divided chambers. It was a little raucous at moments, if you remember. But we came together, and we worked together on that. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And no one pretends that this year's budget is perfect. But it was collaborative. We worked together. We didn't get everything we wanted. We didn't get rid of everything we wanted. But folks, we worked together to get there. This conference committee report is a reflection of that same effort that we made across the street. Wasn't everything we thought was the perfect solution, but it is a solution that we worked together on and we came together on, and I'm proud of that, and proud to have all the support that you will be giving to this budget and to the JBC on this, and appreciate again all the fine work of my colleagues on the JBC, and ask for your aye vote.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the senator from Denver started breaking the rules and mentioning names, I would like to also thank my colleague, Senator Grantham, for the great work that he did this week. And I don't want to forget our House colleagues. We had 4 new members of the Budget Committee this year, including Senator Grantham, Representative Hamner, Representative Young, and Representative Rankin. They are all specialists in many areas. We have a lawyer. We have a great man who represents a lot of the interests of Southern Colorado, of Western Colorado. We have a PhD in education on the committee. So I think we've worked together very well as a team. I would really like to thank all my colleagues. I'd especially like to thank Senator Stedman, who is very insightful, always has the greatest integrity, and always the greatest civility in working with everybody on the committee. And I think he's really represented all of you very well in the Democratic caucus, and I'd like to thank him especially for his hard work in mentoring us all, especially 4 new members, as we've tried to get them up to speed on a very, very steep learning curve, and to get the best budget out that we can. Thank you for your support, and I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion? The motion before us is the readoption of Senate Bill 234. Are there any no votes? Senator Heath? Senator Jones? With 31 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 234 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader. Senator Garcia. Senator Holbert. Senator Kafalis. The Senate should absorb a short moment of jubilation for passing the budget.
Thank you. Money man.
Request for conference committees. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and happy Friday. It looks like we may be out of here before noon, and with that, I would like to request the committee for House Bill 1173 be granted permission to go beyond the scope of the difference between the two houses.
We're going to deal with this piece by piece. In response to a request from the House for Conference Committee on House Bill 1173, the President appoints Senators Todd Chair, Baumgardner, and Cook as the Senate conferees on the first Conference Committee on House Bill 1173. Now, Senator Todd.
Thank you, President Cadman. I appreciate that, and I guess I'm just so looking forward to the weekend, I could just jump right in. So with that, again, I would like to request permission to go beyond the scope of the difference between the two houses on House Bill 1173.
You please explain.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, I think there was conversation to be had from amendments that were put on in the Senate, and would like to be able to go back and have that conversation in terms of the pertinence and also the relevancy of some of that.
Okay, you have heard the motion that the Senate grant the Conference Committee permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two houses. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The Conference Committee is granted permission to go beyond the scope of differences. Thank you. The following change in bill sponsorship will occur. Representative Priola will replace Representative Windoles as the House Prime Sponsor on Senate Concurrent Resolution 1 with Senator Martinez-Humenick. Message from the House.
April 17, 2015, Mr. President, the House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1023. The House has adopted and returns herewith Senate Joint Resolution 10. The House has passed on third reading, transmitted the advisory statutes. House Bill 1248 is amended. House Bill 1249 is amended. House Bill 1344 is amended. House Bill 1283 is amended. House Bill 1285 is amended. House Bill 1287 is amended. House Bill 1310 is amended. House Bill 1241 is amended. And House Bill 1267 is amended.
Message from the Reviser.
April 17, 2015, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bills 1241, 1248, 1249, 1267, 1283, 1285, 1287, 1310, and 1344.
Introduction of resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 1022 by Representatives Wilson and Becker Kay and Senators Baumgardner and Garcia concerning the Colorado Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate lay over House Joint Resolution 1022 to April 20.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. House Joint Resolution 1022 will lay over until April 20th. Committee reports.
April 16, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends following Senate Bill 254 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 16, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1284 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. April 16, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 253 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. April 16, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1016 be amended as follows, and as so amended before the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. April 16, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1277 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Announcements. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have an announcement today, shock and surprise. The University of Colorado on Monday has the Director of Research and Engineering for the Center of Unmanned Vehicles is coming on Monday, and their lunch and presentation is on UASs in Colorado. How are we maintaining national leadership? They will be bringing some examples as well, so you would be able to see some of the unmanned aerial systems and see how creative, innovative, and spooky they are. The center at CU has been phenomenal with this. So it is at noon on Monday, and if you could RSVP by today, then you could have a lunch ready for you on Monday. Thank you.
Further announcements. Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just wanted to make you aware of two tributes from the Senate that will be... Thank you, members. I just wanted to make you aware of two tributes from the Senate that will be delivered tonight at an anniversary dinner for the John F. Kennedy Partners Center at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. The JFK Partners are celebrating 50 years of service to Colorado, the Rocky Mountain region, and the nation. For a half-century, JFK Partners has been a leader in advancing care and treatment for children and adults with developmental disabilities through training, education, clinical services, research, policy, and advocacy. They have been training personnel from a number of disciplines and service systems, and they provide family and person-centered services and supports. They design, implement, evaluate, and disseminate intervention programs which continually incorporate new research findings. We will be extending our deep appreciation to JFK Partners for their endeavors, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Further announcements. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just was reminded.
It'll be $5, Senator Todd.
Mr. President, I knew you when you were a chair, and you used to sit in this chair over here, Mr. President.
It could be $5 for each time the word chair was heard.
What a great sense of humor you have. Anyway, I just wanted to respond to one of my colleagues from Colorado Springs that reminded me, today is College Day. And I totally forgot, or I would have been wearing some different colors than I'm wearing today, because this almost looks like I'm a K-State fan, and that just would not work. So it is we have the Air Force Academy represented, and maybe some of you remembered that. But this is an opportunity for us to, again, talk to our constituents, and particularly to our young people, about going to college, going to post-secondary, making those different pathways that go in many different directions. But it is College Day in Colorado, and again, I apologize to my Jayhawks for wearing purple on College Day.
Senator Todd, Senator Kafalis has paid your fine.
Need some crowdfunding.
Further announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we are going to leave the desk open as bills continue to come over from the House. Move, Mr. President, that the Senate recess to 1 p.m. today.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The Senate will recess. I'm going to start over here. This Senate's going to recess until 1 p.m.